When you look at this group, Skoronski, Johnson, top two guys, does that jive with what you're sort of seeing as far as when you're watching film?
Yes, I mean Skoronski obviously has a lot of positives to him. My only concern, and I don't want to jump into negatives, right? I'm a very positive grader and evaluator. I want to talk about the positives first. Obviously, Skoronski has a lot of positives, right? He gets off fast. He has the ability, the awareness to do what he needs to do in line as a run blocker, of course. And by the way, we all know his ability to play guard. There's a lot of discussion out there, quite honestly, whether he's a guard or a tackle at the next level. He does both very well at the college level. I mean, he has the ability to do both very well at the college level. And, quite honestly, maybe his makeup might be more suitable for him to play guard. Again, he can pull, he can get upfield, he has the ability to break down and do what he needs to do. I mean, when you watch him, ostensibly his arms are a little bit shorter than you would like him. Believe me, I've been around short arm guys who have had really good starting careers in the National Football League, but it's usually, Eric, it's right on the verge, right? Sam Baker, who we drafted way back in my first year as a GM with the Falcons with Matt Ryan, he was always plagued by his arms being a little bit short. So everyone kind of laughs at that, probably in the fan base area. Like, really, is that much of a deal? And it can be if it's an inch or two short. There's no question it can be. And if the players aren't adept, fast and explosive with their hands, and adept at just stinging someone in the chest, and they're not utilizing them properly, well, then those shorter arms are even worse, right? So, anyway,
Mhm.
I like Skoronski a lot. I like everything to do with him. I just think he's projected to be a guard, and I think that's where he's going to find his world.
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? Because it was at you were a member of the Sloan Sports Analytics football panel this past year in 2023. In 2022, the panel had Mitchell Schwartz on it talking about offensive line play. And for those who don't know, Mitchell Schwartz was the right tackle for the Browns and then the Chiefs, and one of the best right tackles in all of football for basically the balance of his entire career. And if you look back at some of his measurables, both athleticism measurables were not very good for Mitchell Schwartz. And he talked about how, because that was true, everything about his game had to be precise in order for him to make do. And I think that that's the case with a guy like Skoronski. Now, has it been so far? Yes. Like, the guy can't make a false step with those kind of arms because he can't, the sort of the he can't, rebound as much. He can't use some of that God-given athleticism because he doesn't have the arm size or whatever. I will say, though, and this is interesting, and I want to get your opinion on it. Like, when I was at PFF, we developed this thing called true pass sets, which basically is just looking at pass protection plays when the ball got out after 2.5 seconds, no screens, no play action. He had 175 of those last season at Northwestern, and he only surrendered 2 pressures the entire time.
Mm.
That was ninth best in college football among tackles. That is a very, very sort of that's a very efficient tackle, right? So far at the college level, he's been able to use, that to his advantage. Now, Big Ten, talking about not the greatest athletes as far as edge players and stuff on balance, so the statistics are good, but some of the underlying things, as you said, are borderline. Does that make it hard, given that, we know the surplus value of a guard is not particularly high? Does that make it hard to take him with a top 10 selection in the draft?
No, I don't think it makes it hard to take him that way. I mean, there's some other really big athletes here, good-looking athletes that we're going to be talking about that may have the edge on them. But everywhere we see him, he is going before anyone, right? I keep hearing everyone rave about his ability. I think that's the full package element. Again, it comes down to the program, right? Not the program. It comes down to the team, the
Yep.
approach, the type of offense they're running, the type of O-line coach that they have, and honestly, the head coach, just the way that they put together their team is going to be important to decide on the type of player they're going to have in that spot. Now, remember, when you're sitting down as a GM and a head coach, and you're trying to think how you're going to put together your O-line, how you're going to build your O-line, we know how important that is to build through the draft, right? We talked about it Was it a couple months ago? The O-line that's there, instead of going out in the market and trying to spend all this money on a known commodity, you're going to have to develop guys, right? You're going to have to look at the full package. You're going to have to really drill in and make sure that you've worked them out properly. You've worked them out on the board properly. You've done all of your research to make sure that the type that you want to build your O-line around. And I do say this, like we say it about quarterbacks, the best way to come in here with O-line and to build through the O-line in the draft is to think for 2, 3, and 4 contracts, right? Ultimately, that's what you'd love to have. You don't want to take a flyer on a guy. I've never been a big believer in taking a flyer on a guy who's going to be a hit or miss as an O-lineman.